Let's talk about ETH, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Let's talk about ETH. Hello, and welcome to Cryptocurrents, the weekly podcast of people working in crypto talking about everything that matters in crypto. Think of us like the Olympics relay team. Sometimes we may fumble the handoff, but we're always bringing home that gold. I'm your host, Vince, and today I'm joined by Kale.
What's up?
And Katya.
Hi, Vince.
And this is going to be a departure from our usual episodes because instead of talking about the top trending topics in all of crypto that you should be aware of, as we record this, it is currently July 30th, 2025, which is the 10-year anniversary of Ethereum, the birth of Ethereum, and the reason why we all have jobs and why we do this for fun and for a living. So we're going to kind of just meander through and talk about some key moments in ETH's history. So to kind of kick things off, I want to reflect back on two things, 2015, and when you first heard about Ethereum. So Katya, start us off. What were you doing in 2015? Was Ethereum's launch even on your radar? Had you heard about Bitcoin at that point?
Absolutely not. In 2015, I was so I'm from Ukraine originally, and I had lived in the US and back in Ukraine, back and forth throughout my life because my family, my parents, had always lived there. It was just me in the United States. So in 2015, my daughter was 8, and we just moved back to Ukraine for a couple of years to see more of my family, for her to see more of the family, for her to learn about the culture and the language a little bit. So we just moved back to Ukraine, I was not aware. I mean, I'm not a gamer or like a DJ. I've never been. So I was never in that environment, I guess, where I might have learned about it. I did have some computer science geek friends in college, but I didn't stay in touch with them to that extent. And I honestly don't even know. That's actually a good question. I might reach out to them and ask them if they knew about Bitcoin and Ethereum back then. But yeah, so I didn't really have anyone in my close community who might have turned me on to all of that. And so I only found out about Bitcoin and crypto really when so in 2017 we moved back to the United States again, and we moved to LA, and I was looking for kind of remote work while my daughter was still going to school, and I found this online publication, and it was about crypto, and I was like, and the editor saw some of my writing and was like, would you like to write for us? And I was like, I don't know anything about what you guys are doing. What? And he basically said, you're a good writer. You have a handle on technical things. So you learn, it'll be fine. And he was right. I learned it was fine. I started going to like crypto conferences in 2018 in California and covering that for the publication, doing some interviews. And so my exposure to crypto at all was like in January of 2018. So
Gotcha. Kale, talk to me about your journey to crypto, but also what the hell were you doing in 2015?
Dude, so it's bittersweet because in 2015, I was 21 years old. I was a busser, working 7 days a week, making absolute shit money. But it's bittersweet because my friend had told me about Bitcoin like a year prior. So I had heard about Bitcoin like 2013, 14-ish, that cycle. And it was $700-ish, I remember. And I remember looking at it and thinking to myself, like, what's the point of this? Like, why would I need a thing for $700 when I have the real dollar that I can use on things? And I just kind of forgot about crypto and everything to do with crypto for the next 5 years. And then I just didn't learn about it again until 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, 2015, I was just ignoring crypto.
Blissfully ignorant.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I first heard about Bitcoin in 2013, and it was a guildmate of mine on World of Warcraft named J Monster, who was also a drug dealer on the side, and was taking Bitcoin for drugs. And he told me about it, and I looked into how to mine it, and I was like, this is too complicated. I can't be bothered.
Oy.
So I mean, I always like that kind of throwback because there's the well-known story that Vitalik conceptualized Ethereum when a World of Warcraft skill was taken away from his warlock, and he's like, they shall never take it away from me again.
Dude, it's funny because I was a Warlock main back
Yeah.
like when that was happening, and I remember that exact patch that like prompted him to create Ethereum.
You just rolled a new character. He re-rolled money in
Dude,
general.
straight up, different levels.
Yeah. But I mean, we all come to crypto in our own way, and I eventually came to work in crypto. I dabbled in buying crypto over the next few years, with Litecoin being one of my first buys. And then I went to work for a project that was building on Ethereum during the ICO boom, which is kind of the next kind of big milestone I kind of want to just chat about with you guys, which is the ICO boom. And during that boom, some little project that fled ICO regulation out of China came to Pasadena, California, and they were like, "We need help. We're basically doing. We want to bring YouTube on the blockchain. We want people to be exchanging value to watch videos." Um, and they were like, "We have no idea how to talk to creatives. We have no idea how to market." Um, and they brought me in, and I worked for them for a number of months doing that. And that was called Alpha Token back in the day. Obviously went nowhere.
What a name,
Oh, what a
Alpha.
name, dude. But yeah, it was just that was kind of my first foray and led to my first crypto conference where it was really cool, I think, at the end of the day, to see all of these ICO projects. Um, and so let's kind of like talk about the ICO boom. And, Katya and I handled it, firsthand. But Kale, you've read about it in the history books. Kind of for me, it was so interesting to see that people were trying to solve all of these problems in unique ways, speaking to community before community was a thing. Um, one of the favorite projects, like use cases I saw was it was a project called Ooh La La, and they were basically creating decentralized banking for Latinos in the United States. And so you could basically operate as an ATM using their coin to then, be if someone needed to pull cash or like take a loan or whatever. And it was fascinating to see. It was like very niche, but it was a great concept. And I feel like during that ICO boom, there was such a great level of innovation, beyond just people trying to get rich. There was still definitely a lot of people just trying to get rich, but a lot of innovation, and then a lot of stupid stuff like bringing shopping carts on the blockchain, which is my favorite joke and is something I actually saw. But Kale, before we get the other boots on the ground perspective from Katya, talk to us about the ICOs. What are your perceptions of that? Do you think it was good, bad? Do you remember anything of that time or no?
I don't. So like I said, like I heard about crypto in 2013-ish, and then it just like fell off my radar, and I completely ignored it until 2020. So I completely missed the ICO boom. But from what I've heard, like you said about all the innovation happening and whatnot, it sounds like a super exciting time. Like half of me wishes that I was like able to experience it and like how exciting it must have been in the Ethereum ecosystem. Just like the spirit of innovation, all of these people trying a bunch of new things. But honestly, I feel like I probably would have lost money in the ICO boom. Like, I'm the type of investor that's like looking for the next, like whatever the thing is, I'm looking for the next one, you know? So like,
Yeah.
there would have been people trying to tokenize this dumb thing, and I would have been like, well, what's the next tokenizing the dumb thing?
Yeah.
And I would have lost money everywhere. So yeah, I don't know. I wasn't there to experience it, but I'm not that mad about it.
It's fair. Katya, talk to me because you were working at my Ether wallet at that time, right?
Well, actually, I started working at my Ether wallet toward the end of 2018, like November 2018. And so most of the kind of 2018, when the ICO hype was still going on, I was on the conference circuit, really writing about these conferences and interviewing some projects. And like you say, that there was so much innovation. I'm not sure there was a lot of innovation uh,
A promise of innovation.
itself, but there were a lot of ideas. There was a lot of what can blockchain do for this or for that. There was a lot of very different um, uh, kind of fantasies about what blockchain can do for different industries and areas of life. At this point today, we've kind of, I think, converged into a finance perspective on the blockchain, on crypto. And of course, money touches everything. But I think we kind of focused more on innovating the financial aspect of digital money, etc. But back then, it was all over the place. There was so much stuff. A lot of sex projects interest somehow. Some things that were legitimately, I think, had a reason to exist, like addressing the issues of sex workers having trouble with banking because nobody would accept them as a business in a bank, etc. Some more silly things like consent on the blockchain, where you tap phones to indicate consent, etc. All these crazy things. I just remember these because a lot of the time the representatives from these projects were women, and they would re- naturally find me on the conference and talk to me about these things. So I think got a disproportionate exposure to that sort of thing. But yeah, and it was fascinating to me because initially everything was like, I was like, wow, we can do that. That would be incredible, for every project. And then I would interview projects, and it was my job at that time to make them look interesting and good. And it wasn't very hard for me because everything sounded amazing to me. And of course, with time, pretty quickly, I realized that a lot of it was just a hypothesis, right? People hypothesizing that blockchain can do this for this industry. And so I think my kind of oversaturation of that, I didn't buy into any ICO at all. I did have a wallet already by then, and my first wallet was Coinbase, I regret to say, but because that's what the publication recommended to me. They said, we'll pay you, and I did get paid in crypto. So pretty early, in 2018. So, but I didn't take it very seriously. I treated it as just experience that would lead me to a real job eventually, which it did. I think I got tired of trying to navigate the space and being like getting excited about these things and then realizing that they were like a poof. And, but I also did, have the opportunity to understand that some projects in the space were real. It's just that they were usually quieter than the ones that were hyping. And so my conclusion out of all of that, my experience of the ICO hype was, I want to work in this space, but I want a job that's real with a real company that's building real things. And I landed at my Ether wallet that way. And so at the end of 2018, I was at my Ether wallet, and I started basically as a community manager, social media manager, just kind of reading user experience, responding to user experience, and creating content for like real users. And that was much more rewarding to me because it was like, it's real. Here are people using it for things that they need, that they understand, that they like. And it's like a real product that's really working. So
rather than writing about tokens and projects that are rugging.
True.
Yeah.
So something that has always kind of like stuck out to me, and we've all kind of touched on this a little bit, is I don't know of any other industry that has so many conferences. Like the conference circuit for crypto is crazy. And what I think is unique is like with the governing body of the Ethereum Foundation, they have their dev cons and now their dev connects. And just like over the time in crypto, the last 5 years that I've been at my Ether wallet and my time before, there's certainly been an evolution of these conferences where I feel like crypto has kind of grown up. But Katya, you've been here the longest and have gone to the most DEF cons. Can you kind of like speak to the arc between like your first DEF CON and the most recent one where we three went to Bangkok?
Right. So my first DEF CON was DEF CON 5 in Osaka,
Mhm.
Japan, which was in 2019. I just missed Prague. I joined Mu in November 2018. And I remember that as I started working on the socials and I started writing on their Medium, the very last post before I joined was
Was about Prague.
about Prague, right? So they had just gone to Prague, but I missed that. And so my first one was Osaka 2019, and then after that, the COVID hit, and so there wasn't a DEF CON for a while after that. But yeah, it was a startling experience for me because I had gone to conferences before to a bunch, but they were much smaller
Mhm.
than DEF CON, and of course much less focused because DEF CON is Ethereum and much less DEF CON is much more developer focused. That is called DEF CON, right? So it felt much more serious and real than anything that I had gone to before, because there were many more people talking about things I didn't understand, which when people are just shilling their projects, that's not the environment, that's not the vibe. And I was thinking back to it recently to that DEF CON, and I remember it's only honestly only 6 years ago, the DEF CON 5, but so much happened since then on Ethereum. I remember that this was before, obviously, ETH2 was in the process of being built up before the merge. There was a lot of doubt about proof of stake and whether it was ever going to happen and whether Ethereum was even capable of scaling. There was a lot of DeFi, and that's when like the DeFi Legos, when all of these projects were first coming up, and there was a lot of excitement and hope about that. But this thing with Ethereum scaling was like, well, we are all building this stuff in here, but if it never scales, where are we going to go with it? Um, I remember that. Do you remember Libra, the
Oh
Facebook
yeah.
stablecoin?
Oh, of course.
Right. So this was right after that was announced, and there were some presentations about how like this is not cool because it will be centralized, but we're going to make one that's decentralized. And some people in the community were complaining like, why are we even like legitimizing this with presentations about it? And then Libra got so much pushback from regulations and everything about stablecoin, how it was that it died, like it was killed dead by all of that. And can you imagine just 6 years later, we have the Genius Act?
Yeah.
That's insane. That's very fast, I feel like. So yeah, so I'm looking back at that, and it was an exciting experience for me. It was like my first DEF CON, but I'm just fascinated now how much doubt and fear and all of that there was about Ethereum's going for like whether the proof of stake would even happen at all, whether DeFi would have a life on Ethereum or anywhere at all. Stable coins were just like nobody wanted to touch that, and here we are.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So, Kale, talk to me about your first DEF CON. Like, we're skipping out of the timeline here, but I just kind of want to hear about you, like, going to that first, like, because you've been to a number of conferences, but DEF CON was like the first one that was EF driven.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, um, it was a similar to what Katya was explaining a minute ago. I noticed that as well. That like DevCon felt much more serious, so to speak. Because yeah, like the crowd there is all devs and whatnot, and the conference I had been to prior was East Denver, And East Denver is like a completely different vibe. There was like people walking around on LSD, like all types of characters over there. And so
In a venue that smelled of horses or cows,
and it
because
was
that's what it was used for viewers.
literally, yeah, it was literally like a barn. And I think the entry was free. So I mean, it attracted a whole bunch of characters at East Denver. And so then like
I mean, to be fair, kudos to East Denver for being the only free crypto conference, but you also get what you get.
yeah, true that.
You get what you pay for.
True that. Yeah. But yeah, so going from East Denver and then experiencing DevCon was like night and day for sure. But it was nice to see. And DevCon happened like I think it was the beginning of November,
Yeah.
late October last year. So it was like right when the Bitcoin uh price run up was happening to like 70-ish K. So the vibes, everything was pretty cool at the Bangkok DevCon.
Yeah,
Everyone was
vibes were high, hopes were up for sure.
yeah.
Ethereum was down, but Bitcoin was up.
yeah.
You took a deep breath, Katja.
What were you
Yeah,
about to say,
no,
Katja?
I was gonna say I realized that the one I was gonna so the about the vibes and the hopes. So because DevCon 5 Osaka was 2019 and then it was COVID. So DevCon 6 in Bogota that Vince, you and I went to was in 2022, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. And that was October. It was right after the merge because the
Yep.
merge happened in September 22. So the vibes were really high there in terms of like the merge happened. It was successful.
I can only
Ethereum was now
imagine.
POS. So yeah. I was just gonna say it was right after but I realized I was thinking of the Bangkok, of the Bogota one, not the Bangkok one. Yeah,
for sure. So now we've all kind of like flagged like COVID as being like this moment, like that's when Kale got in, and so talk to me about DeFi summer, because it sounds like both of you were in the thick of it. I was just like noped out of crypto for 2020. Like I was just paying attention more to like other alternative investments and the actual stock market, more TradFi stuff, and working at my consultancy at the time. So I like crypto wasn't even on my radar.
Were you disillusioned by your Alpha Coin experience?
I
Did
definitely
you think it was all bullshit?
I mean, I did. You
I
know,
can see
the
that.
problem was like at the time, you know, when I left crypto, everyone was like Brock Pierce and John McAfee are the thought leaders that are going to drive this
Right, I remember
innovation
that.
and adoption. And I'm like, these people are disgusting. Like, what do you
Swerve.
mean? Like, no, hard pass.
I
So
met Brock Pierce in Santa Monica at one of the conferences that I went to, and his wife at the time, Crystal, who's a developer herself and developed projects. But yeah, it was definitely an experience. They hosted a party, and it was wow.
it was a
An
lot.
experience for sure.
It was a lot, I'm sure. But talk to me about DeFi Summer, because that's something that, you know, I totally missed out on and I've always been interested because, you know, we've seen DeFi continue, but like, what was it like at the birth of DeFi Summer, the dawn?
So I mean, so you guys have heard this story before, but what the reason why I started investing into crypto was the stimulus checks that Americans
No, I
were
haven't heard
getting.
this. What?
You're joking. You haven't?
I don't remember
He's
this.
mentioned it before. Yeah, no.
So-
Yeah.
I don't remember this at all.
No, so the stimulus checks that Americans were receiving in 2020 during COVID, that was like the first time in my life that I had disposable money. And I was like, oh, what should I do with this extra money? And so I figured like, okay, now's a perfect time to learn about like investing and like how do I grow capital and blah, blah, blah. And so I dove headfirst into crypto and I started learning about all these crazy APY opportunities, 500% APY, things like that. I'm like, oh, wow, that looks lucrative. And yeah, so I went down the Wi-Fi rabbit hole. I remember Wi-Fi was like $10,000 or something. And then I was looking at other crazy derivatives of Wi-Fi. One of them was called Wise token. Long story short, I ended up locking up like thousands of dollars. To this day, it's still locked in their smart contract. It unlocks, I think, early 2026.
Wow.
Yeah, it just like so dumb, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, DeFi Summer for me was like my intro into crypto. And I didn't necessarily make money, but it was cool to
But at least
experience.
got you in the trenches.
Yeah, yeah, it was cool to experience and like was a good intro to me, I think.
Meanwhile, on the flip side, what were the grown-ups doing during DeFi summer, Katya?
So this was at this point I learned first about Maker, Maker DAO, and their stablecoin DAI, and Aave. And we at New they were integrating Aave and Maker modules into the web platform, the wallet that started as a web wallet and then developed into this bigger platform where you connected your wallet and you could do all kind besides sending and whatnot. So before that, a wallet or a platform or whatever it is, the crypto wallet was just be to hold and to send.
Mhm.
And if you wanted to trade, you would send to an exchange and then send back, etc. And now, I mean, we weren't the only ones doing it, but now the concept of having DeFi opportunities in the wallet started coming up, and Aave and Maker were the first examples of that. Another thing, it's not strictly DeFi, but ENS domains were launching in with support in wallets at that time. Also announced at DEF CON 5 in Osaka, and Mu was one of the first wallets that supported ENS and also had an ENS generation kind of widget in the wallet. So this was, for me, the important part of this was that now users could do other things in the wallet, right? In the wallet, right? So now we are all used to that. We expect a whole lot of our crypto wallets today. But back then was a new thing. And so I had to learn about what this DeFi does. Like
Right.
what do you do? Like you put
How
in
does number go up?
yeah, like what do you do with this, with the stable coin and I am not had not been at that point. I'm still not, but especially back then, I wasn't a big finance person. I didn't really know about financial operations, even in the traditional markets. So it was kind of eye opening for me. And then when I started learning about flash loans, my hair started turning gray at the roots. That was the point, because the realization that you could permissionlessly, like, just come in, get these loans that turn around within one block, like you never even had that money, and all of a sudden you're like 10xing money that you never had. Like all of that just still doesn't fit inside my head, and this
Yeah.
didn't then. So it was a revelation to me, and I had to look at it from the point of view of trying to support users who were also trying it for the first time and writing
Right.
content that was explaining, like, here's how it works, here's what happens if you don't watch it and it like liquidates your loan, all of that stuff. So the dangers of it and how it all happens. Nobody's watching it. If you're not watching it, nobody's watching it. Like there's nobody who is going to stop this from happening if you're. So all of that was just really, I had to understand it to be able to talk to users about it, and it was new. It was quite new.
Yeah. I think it's interesting how, crypto has been punctuated by a different craze kind of in each cycle, which kind of in the timeline takes us to the next craze, which would be the NFT cycle. The NFT craze, Axie Infinity, and all this jazz. And that was like, for me, the first craze that I was working in crypto for that just made me go, what is going on right now?
Where are the adults?
Where did the adults go? There were adults in the room talking about APY, but now there are adults in the room talking about profile pictures. And I was like, what is happening? I've said time and time again on the show that, the iteration of NFTs is like, here's a profile picture that's going to appreciate in value is absolutely ludicrous. But talk to me about that craze from your perspective, guys.
I just want to say that I sort of missed it entire. Like for me, the entire thing was for our wallet to start supporting NFTs, to display them properly so people could see them. That was all I cared about, whether they were showing nicely, whether the pictures were all of that. Other than that, I was just sort of just sort of went by. I the only NFTs I own are ENS domains.
Mhm.
That's it. So like I never even jumped
I
in
mean, those are
on
solid NFTs to have.
nope.
What about you,
I
Kale?
I kind of skipped it too, to be honest, because like so I was only a year deep into crypto at this point.
Mhm.
But I was still like a year deep trenching, like I was doing like unorthodox things. Um, and so
Yikes.
yeah, dude, I was all over the place. But one
Kale
thing I
autobiography coming soon.
the on-chain autobiography.
Oh.
But one thing I did participate in was Axie Infinity,
Mhm.
which kind of relates to the NFT craze. It was like the same time, and Axies are NFTs. But for those who are unaware, Axie Infinity was like an NFT project that's kind of like Pokemon, but
Mhm.
like a way worse version of it, like way way worse. But like the concept is like you have these little creatures called Axies, and you level them up, and there's rarities, and you can battle them, and it's a whole thing. And they were really expensive at one point. They were like $300 per Axie, and you
I
need three of
remember it was
them.
crazy.
Yeah, you need three of them to even play the game. So
Yep.
like to start playing the game, it was like a $900 ticket at the peak, I believe. But like Axie had this program where so it was a play to earn game. So people were earning crypto by playing Axie Infinity. And so it like blew up in third world countries where their currency isn't very strong.
Mhm.
And Axie created this program where it's like, well, if you can't afford the $900 to start your own team, you can rent out another person's team. And so a lot of people were like, whales were buying up a lot of Axies and then just renting out their Axies to smaller players and just earning revenue on those people playing with
Mhm.
their Axies. And so, of course, when I learned about this, I was like, "Oh, yep, I'm gonna retire on this." I, I bought myself a few Axies, and I was like, "Oh, yep, I'm gonna be an Axie manager. I need to recruit a team, and blah 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 blah." And I was going through it, and that never came to fruition. But
No?
no, that
What?
was at the end of 2021, and I got hired here at Mew not even 6 months later. So like in that same time when I was like trying to be an Axie Infinity manager, I was also like reaching out and like applying to crypto jobs. Um, so yeah, the Axie thing never came to fruition, but that's what I was doing during the NFT craze.
Oh man, that's crazy. I
Yeah.
I was just looking around at these communities being like, I don't get it. Like, I don't get it at all. Um, but what was more interesting during kind of all of that was Ethereum was transitioning from proof of work to proof of stake. So let's kind of like talk about that because that was always very interesting to me and will probably be one of the most incredible things that Ethereum does for some time is basically change how it fundamentally works overnight,
Like upgrades itself.
upgrades itself. And that was crazy to me. And Katya, you were there when they first launched the ETH2 contract and had to watch it like fill up. Talk to us about that.
Right. It so this was, 2020. And after after COVID. So the people who explain DeFi summer, some of the explanations are like that people were stuck at home and they had nothing to do, and then the stimulus checks, like Yale, and all of those things came together for people to kind of be paying more attention to the digital life, digital ownership, digital things in general, and so crypto kind of rode in on that. Uh, and I find it really kind of heartwarming, I guess, that during all of this, Ethereum devs were still like building, they were still pursuing this. I don't know. I find I'm maybe kind of naive and idealistic, but I kind of find the Ethereum developer community very interesting in the sense that, of course, all of them are getting rewarded one way or another. They're participating in the protocols they're building, etc. But still, it's like they don't have a salary. They don't have a career path in this place. Nobody is going to promote them to CEO eventually, So kind of the fact that they're all building this, I'm not talking about the people building the projects,
Yep.
but the underlying kind of
Ethereum devs
yeah,
themselves. Yeah.
yeah, the Ethereum infrastructure, the Ethereum network, the Ethereum blockchain. And so I'm not very technical, but when the staking contract launched, because by virtue of my job, I have to write about these things for our users, and so I would have to like process this and kind of put it back out in a easier language. So it was interesting to learn about these things. And when the staking contract launched, I understood that the beacon chain could only go forward securely if it was filled with a specific number of 32 ETH validators. I forget what the exact number is, but and so platforms like Etherscan, the blockchain explorer, like they did these little widgets where you could watch how the contract was filling up, and it was very interesting because this is the sort of thing. 32 ETH was not as much back then as 32 ETH is now, but still, it was thousands of dollars. And you would be putting it into, you would not know whether you would ever see that money again, whether the proof of stake would happen, whether and when that stake would be unlocked. So it was like a pure show of either faith or high risk tolerance kind of investment. And at first it was slow, like we would go and check every day. And I think it was like a couple of months or less. I forget now. But readers can read on our blog. I have it all in my 10-year history blog. So it was a little while, and we were checking every day. And at first it was really slow, and then it was, and it filled up like a couple of days before the deadline. It was done, and everybody knew that Beacon Chain would go forward, and that the first stage of the proof of stake chain would start. So because Beacon Chain was the proof of stake chain, and for 2 years it was going alongside the original Ethereum proof of work chain, and so they were going alongside each other. So the original chain was processing transaction, and Beacon Chain was doing other work, like it was testing, and they were working on the protocol. And then when the merge happened in 22, they merged.
Yeah. What?
And yeah, I know. But it was very interesting, and you could see, like, if you were new to the community, to the Ethereum community, or weren't seeing this, I think gave you like a lot of confidence. You were like, all these people are putting in like real money, a lot of money, into a future that is not guaranteed at all, but they are all confident that it will happen. And
100%. That's how I felt coming into Ethereum at around that time. It was like very captivating to witness. It's like, what are all these people on? Made me very
on that
fascinated.
3% yield, man. What do you mean? What are they on? DeFi, obviously.
Yeah, it definitely was very intriguing. Made me want to learn.
Yeah, I because we were all working at Mew when the merge happened, and the live stream with the panda, which I slept through.
I saw that
watched
live.
it, and I was in New York at the time, and it was like 3 a.m. for me or something,
Yeah,
but I
damn.
was watching it.
See, that I just had so much faith that I didn't need to see it happen. I just went to sleep, and I was like, it'll all be great in the morning.
Vince's beauty sleep. Nothing can interrupt it.
I mean, you're not wrong. Look at these eyes. They have to be well rested.
So much PTSD from the Alpha
Oh, yeah,
project,
for
Alpha
sure,
Coin.
man. And so kind of, the merge happens, and then I feel like we've kind of been in a lull. I feel like over the last few years, Ethereum has tried to do kind of like the on-chain summer, but that was mostly Coinbase. But Kale, you had some strong opinions about on-chain summer.
I mean, not as well, not strong opinions, but it was a moment for me for sure. It was exciting because so from like 2020 until that point, we were facing like pretty heavy regulation
Mm.
from like the SEC and that whole administration. And then on-chain summer felt like a turning point for me because Coinbase, which is like a huge company, finally came and announced that like, okay, we're doing our own L2 and we have all these things and you can do this. And it seemed to me like they had like a much bigger vision coming
Mm.
to fruition. So that for me was just indicative that like if Coinbase is doing this, like Ethereum is really not going anywhere. So it was kind of like a moment of clarity for me, like, wow, like Ethereum's really doing this. So it was cool to see.
Yeah. I do. It's like, I feel like NFTs and DeFi summer kind of happened organically, and I feel like nothing has really happened organically recently. So I do appreciate that they were trying to make something happen.
True.
I just wish it would have been a little bit more engaging and a little bit more have a little bit more fuel behind it. Because they've done that now for multiple years and we've participated, they're a partner of ours. So it's always interesting to kind of see, but it doesn't break out of our bubble.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, what the only thing that I kind of see that is the main narrative right now is, the institutional buy-in of, the BlackRocks of the world into crypto and Ethereum. That's kind of the phase we're in, which doesn't necessarily excite the retail user, which I think is a problem. Because I think it's short-sighted. I think people are like, "Oh man, the government's getting involved and there's oversight, so there's not going to be like 20x returns," not realizing that that doesn't like limit the returns. Like there's still going to be returns,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah. People see
You know,
Bitcoin at 100, over 100K, and they're like, oh, I'm too late.
yeah, and that's always a challenge. But I do like the institutional buy-in. I do think that that does kind of indicate more grown-ups are entering the room. Maybe, I don't know. Hard to tell. But what are your
Yeah.
guys' like feelings? Like I know we talk about that kind of week over week, but broadly speaking, what are your thoughts and feelings on institutional buy-in?
Well, I wanted to touch um, also on the kind of the Coinbase, the base, the Unchained Summer, and
Mm-hmm.
layer twos generally. Like you were saying, there's a lull, and I think there was a lot of the biggest conversations around Ethereum in the past couple of years were about the scaling roadmap and the layer twos around Ethereum. And I think I just get really tired of all this, like, oh, is Ethereum dead? Is it, because I think maybe it's only if you're in the space that you understand that Ethereum, EVM, is the reason all these layer twos exist.
It's the reason that all of crypto exists.
Pretty
No one is
much.
Basically.
doing no one is doing
Yeah,
anything going toe to toe with Bitcoin. Like
right.
Ethereum's like,
Yeah.
yo, you want smart contracts and like smart money? And then everyone's like, yeah, let's kind of take that and do it a little bit differently.
So I think Ethereum is doing this thing again, like before I was saying, kind of just quietly building things, and it's
Mhm.
still the thing that matters in the background with all of these, base and Arbitrum and Optimism, the super chain, all of these things. They are all the bedrock of all of that is Ethereum. And so I think for Ethereum specifically, the institutional buy-in now is going to expose and reveal maybe to the more average user the importance of Ethereum again. And I think that's already happening because some of the big institutional players are choosing Ethereum for their product because they're like, okay, I'm not interested in like 0.05-second turnaround. What I'm interested in is security and uptime and reliability and
A
And
track
it's
record.
Ethereum
yeah,
produces yield too, which they love.
Yeah.
right. So and stable. I mean, knocking on wood here, but unlike a lot of other chains that um, so it is the kind of the underlying layer for all of this hypey stuff, and it's
Mhm.
still there and it's still working. There are things that are happening in the background, like, the like account abstraction, which we were all bored of, like at one of the dev cons. But it's a thing that can make wallets much more creative, much more easier to use, more secure, everything like that. So all of that work is going on, and it's building up to more things that we don't know about yet. Just like at DEF CON in Osaka in 2019, nobody, people were like, POS might never happen. Well, it happened, and how? So like here we are. So yeah, and the institutional stuff is what we're focused on now, and stable coins. But I still feel like, because Ethereum, like, the first stable coin ever technically wasn't on Ethereum, it wasn't on EVM. But de facto, for all intents and purposes, Ethereum created stable coins, and all the layer twos where the stable coins now live. And it doesn't, to me, I don't think it matters that there's no hype now, that people are not understanding that when they're interacting with these things indirectly, they're interacting with Ethereum.
Yeah,
I think it will there will be more cycles, more hype cycles,
for sure.
and I just think it will, like, continue working, continue being the underlying layer, the bedrock for all of this innovation that we're seeing in crypto. I really believe that after 7 years, after 7 years in Ethereum, I feel pretty convinced of that.
Kale?
Agreed. Ethereum really feels like at this point it's really not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Everything important in crypto was kind of born out of Bitcoin and then Ethereum, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I agree. So this is running long, but let's also just really quickly say, where do you think Ethereum's going to be in another 10 years? What do you think is going to be interesting? Pull something out of your head, pull something out of your hat, and say, I think this is going to happen. And I'll start. That way I give you time. And so I think something that Ethereum will do is figure out how to recapture value from L2s that are currently building and scaling on Ethereum, which is not necessarily affecting price action on Ethereum itself.
Are they better?
I mean, they better. So I think that they're going to move to figure out ways to kind of recapture that, and bring all of the speed up on Ethereum to kind of rival that of the L2s. I feel like L2s are a patch that'll eventually have to be fixed. Katya?
I think that in another 10 years, building on Ethereum or the ecosystem, L2s, will become accessible to the point of being commonplace for a regular user. Let me explain what I mean. Even back when I first joined Mu and I first learned about Ethereum and smart contracts, one of the first things that I was asking people was like, so a smart contract is if me and my neighbor share a lawn and we want to decide who's watering it when, and we write up a smart contract, and if this doesn't happen, then they pay me or I pay them something. This neighbor and I can get together, write up this contract, and put it to work. And people would say to me, well, it's sort of like that, but you can't really do that. So I think in another 10 years, things like this, where you could use the smart contract capabilities of the blockchain as a regular user to organize your daily life, to organize your legal things, to kind of keep track of we were talking about NFTs and ownership documents and whatever. So as a user, I could have access to a wallet or whatever it's going to be called in 10 years, where I can keep track of my contracts with my whether it's my business, whether it's my acquaintances that I'm doing projects with. I could start a business account with smart contracts that do specific things that I want them to do. And all of this I will be able to do without the help of a bank, without the help of a broker, without the help of anyone, just myself, set up my own financial and social contract infrastructure that will work for me. So I think that's what I'm thinking.
I love that. That's like really taking Ethereum past finance. It's like a layer of the internet.
Okay, Kale, say something crazy, unorthodox, on chain.
Dude, so you guys laughed at me. You guys laughed at me about this before, but I think that
a node in every home.
No. That was great callback though. Not that one. But so I think that Ethereum in the next 10 years is going to unlock yield over 5%. Okay. Because just by bringing like RWA and things like that on chain, making the yield much more efficient, I think that we'll see 5, 6, 7, maybe higher APR, APY. I don't know how high.
You heard it here first.
I don't know how high it'll really go.
You're crazy.
But 5 to 7 feels realistic in my opinion. But time will tell. We'll see.
Dude, the rate's about to go down from the Fed. They didn't reduce rates this time, but they're going to reduce rates by the end of the year, and then you're going to see yields start to drop everywhere. But go on.
10-year timeline.
Yeah, no, you're right. Take it all back.
We'll see.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for going down memory lane for Ethereum. And thank you, dear listener, if you've made it this far. We appreciate you being here. Make sure you leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube or TikTok. We love you, apparently, Kale says, holding up a little heart. And we will see you next week with your regular format of cryptocurrency. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.